The air in the lower east side was thick with the scent of rain and expensive espresso. Rumi leaned against a brick wall, her long purple braid resting against the worn leather of her jacket. Beside her, Myra checked her reflection in a shop window, her vibrant pink hair a sharp contrast to the dark, utilitarian shadows of the city. They were in their 30s now, successful but tired, moving through a New York that felt more like a machine than a home. They were waiting for the third piece of their soul's puzzle, feeling the weight of another long week in the corporate jungle. A motorcycle roared to a halt, and Zoe stepped off, her spiked leather jacket catching the flicker of a nearby street lamp. Her short black hair was damp from the mist, giving her an even sharper edge. Without a word, she opened her hand to reveal a jagged piece of obsidian that pulsed with a rhythmic silver light. Found it in the foundation of that old clock tower they're tearing down. Zoe whispered. Myra leaned in, the silver glow illuminating the determination in her eyes. It wasn't just a stone. It was a heartbeat. It feels like it's waiting for us, Rumi said, her voice barely audible over the distant hum of the subway. She reached out to touch the shard, her fingers brushing against Zoe's calloused hand. The moment their skin made contact with the artifact, the alleyway seemed to vibrate. The grime of the city didn't vanish, but it began to shimmer, as if the concrete was suddenly made of stardust. Zoe gripped the shard tighter, her tattoos seeming to ripple under the influence of the strange, ancient energy they had unearthed. The shard began to hum a melody that Myra recognized, a song they had hummed together as teenagers when they first moved to the city with nothing but big dreams. Myra closed her eyes and began to sing, her voice weaving through the silver light. Rumi stood opposite her, placing her hands on the cold brick wall, feeling the structure of the city itself respond to Myra's tone. The ground beneath them cracked, but instead of dirt, a sprout of pure, translucent crystal pushed through the aspal. Zoe laughed, a rare, genuine sound that cut through the city's cynicism. Look at it go! She shouted as the crystal sprout surged upward, twisting into a magnificent, geometric tree of glass and light. It climbed the side of the tenement building, its branches reaching for the stars hidden behind the smog. Myra reached out to catch a falling leaf of light, her pink hair glowing under the radiance of the growing structure. The tree fed on their shared history, growing stronger with every memory of their friendship. Rumi walked to the base of the crystal trunk, the purple of her hair reflecting in the multifaceted surface. It was beautiful and terrifying, a piece of another world standing in the heart of Manhattan. Zoe stood beside her, looking up at the summit that now towered over the surrounding rooftops. We spent so much time trying to fit into their world, Zoe muttered, adjusting her spiked collar. We forgot we were capable of building our own. The tree stood as a silent, glowing monument to their reclaimed spark. Suddenly, the crystal branches shook, and translucent spheres began to drift downward like heavy soap bubbles. Myra jumped, her black dress fluttering, as she swiped at one of the floating globes. As her fingers touched it, a burst of warmth spread through the alley, the smell of old books, wood smoke, and the first day of autumn. Rumi watched as the spheres surrounded them, each one containing a fragment of a dream they had once thought lost to the grind of their 30s. Get in. Zoe called out. She had already stepped inside a large sphere and was beginning to lift off the ground. Myra didn't hesitate. She stepped into a shimmering orb and felt the gravity of her responsibilities simply dissolve. They began to rise, floating past the windows of sleeping New Yorkers. Above the sirens and the steam, they were finally weightless. Zoe looked through the wall of her sphere at Myra, a grin of pure rebellion spreading across her face. Rumi's sphere drifted alongside Zoe's as they reached the level of the skyscraper's observation decks. From here, the city was a sea of amber lights, no longer a cage, but a playground. Rumi's long braid floated around her in the zero gravity of the orb, and for the first time in years, the tension in her shoulders was gone. They drifted near the top of the Empire State Building, three women who had found the magic hidden beneath the steel and stone. As dawn began to tint the sky orange, the spheres gently lowered them back to their alley. The crystal tree didn't vanish. It simply folded inward, becoming a hidden sanctuary, a secret glass gazebo tucked between the buildings where only they could go. Myra and Rumi stood together, watching the city wake up. They still had jobs to go to and bills to pay, but the shard had changed them. They weren't just parts of the machine anymore. They were the architects of their own wonder.